What's up guys, this is Matt Holborn and this is my little video just chatting about a couple of things that I think that you can expect as a jazz violinist. So this video is for, I guess, a couple of different types of people. Maybe you are a young person, you're studying at school or university or a music college or whatever, and you're thinking about, pursuing jazz violin, and I mean specifically playing jazz on the violin as a career. Or maybe you are sort of a bit further on down the line. Maybe you've been playing music for a long time, you've been playing violin for a long time, and you are just trying to work out if you want to really pursue, getting into jazz violin from there as well. So this video, really for anybody who is just thinking about becoming a jazz violinist. First of all, before we get into the points that I have to make, I really just want to tell you, please like, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. Press the like button if you're enjoying what you're seeing. Please subscribe to this channel for more stuff like this and comment on this video. All this stuff really does help me as a content creator. I'm sure you guys have been on YouTube before. You know the drill. Please do it if you're enjoying these videos. If you're not enjoying these videos, then I don't know, whatever. Just click off. Let's get straight into it. Both of these points, they feed into each other, but the first one I'm going to start with is that as a jazz violinist, you are probably going to feel a little bit like an outsider. You can see this as a good thing or a bad thing, or maybe a mixture of both, depending on what's going on. You will feel like a little bit of an outsider at times. Basically, if you're hanging out with violinists, if all your friends are violinists, chances are most of them are not going to be pursuing jazz, right? So say you're studying at school, university. Most of the musicians, most of the violinists that you're hanging out with, they're probably going down the classical route. I'm guessing, most of the time in most universities, that's what's going on. And most violinists, they play classical music. So you're going to feel a little bit like, just a little bit like an outsider with your violin friends. And I know that, when you're a young musician, basically young people can be quite, I don't want to say harsh. What I mean is like single-minded. So, and you'll know this as a young musician right now, you can be single-minded. That's how we get to where we are. We have to think about our thing and only our thing. And a lot of the time we sort of act and feel like our thing is the only thing that's good. And that is how we, like I said, that's how we get to where we are. We have to do that to some degree at some point, or we'll never put in that time, So, but anyway, my point is that young people can really be like that, very single-minded. So say all your friends are into classical music and you're like, oh yeah, I think I'm going to be a jazz violinist. I've seen it before. People are just like, young violinists will be like, all right, okay, right, well, yeah, whatever. But I mean, what I do is much better than what you do. It just is the case. And if you're not following, so basically you're not following the pack. You're sort of breaking off from the pack a little bit, and that can be a real great experience, and it can be a real great thing for you. It's a great thing for you as a person, I think, to be that sort of person, to do that sort of thing, not to always follow the well-trodden path. But it can be sometimes feel a little bit lonely. And what I want to say here is that feeling, it's not going to last forever. It really doesn't last forever. Everybody who puts in the work and becomes a good musician, they always find their place. It doesn't matter where that place is, there is a place for you. And, right now, whilst you're getting into doing this thing that is jazz violin, you're going to feel like you may be a little bit out of place. But I promise you, it's not always going to be the case. There is a place for you as a jazz violinist. The second point that I have, and it does follow on from this first point, is that you are going to have to put in a lot more work behind the scenes, perhaps, than other musicians, okay? Now, there's exceptions to this rule, but from what I see, jazz violinists, we sort of have our work cut out for us when we get to the professional world, because we're not going to get booked in the same way. Well, first of all, we're not going to get booked in the same way as a piano player or a guitarist or a bassist or a drummer is, because we don't have supporting roles. as a jazz violinist. We're not there to support other soloists. We're not there to support other people taking solos or singing songs generally. Okay, so we're not going to, we are joining the ranks of trumpet players and sax players and I don't know. I nearly said recorder players, clarinetists. People who are people who play, frontline, and singers as well. People who play frontline instruments or sing, right? So we're not there supporting the rest of the band as such. We're there to sort of float on top often, to play the melody, to take a solo, blah, blah, blah. And for that reason, you're not going to get booked in the same way and in the same volume as your rhythm section player counterparts, okay? That's just how it is. In the classical world, we as violinists, we are often booked in a supporting role, in that sort of in sections and things like that. So we can expect as classical musicians to have that sort of work, as jazz violinists. If you're just going down the line of I just want to play jazz, I just want to be a jazz violinist, you're not going to get booked in that same way. So you just got to be aware of that. Now, the other aspect to this is that you're also a jazz violinist, and like we've already said, we are sort of outliers. There's not loads of violinists in the history of jazz violin, and there's probably not loads of violinists in the scene that you're working in or that you're working towards being a part of. Right? There's just not loads of jazz violinists. Now, that's a good thing in a lot of ways, because it means that there is a gap for you there. In some ways there will be a gap for you, but in other ways you were not seen as being a jazz instrument by a lot of people. Even the most open-minded musicians, if they have spent their life, and they're still spending their life, listening to and sort of taking inspiration from the classic recordings, from the sort of classic jazz era, the 30s to the 70s or to the 60s. If people are taking inspiration from that music, they're just not going to think of you in the same way that they think of a sax player or a trumpet player. And I remember speaking to Zach Brock. Shout out to Zach Brock if you're watching this. But I remember Zach Brock saying that when he got to New York, he wanted to play a hard bop violin, and he was like, what, if I just work at my craft, if I work at being an amazing hard bop violinist, I learn all the right lines and get into that feel and understand the music and learn all the tunes, then maybe I'll just get booked by all the hard bop musicians. And it didn't happen. Even someone as amazing as Zach Brock, who can really play, doesn't happen, because he's a violinist. At the end of the day, people are hearing trumpet, they're hearing sax, they're hearing trombone, maybe, I don't know, maybe. They're not hearing you. They're not hearing violin if they are putting together a classic jazz band, a traditional jazz band, a swing band, a bop band, a hard bop band. They're just not going to think of you in that same way. So, that being said, we have to take this and harness it. It's like, look, we're not going to be booked in the same way that those other musicians are because of what we've done. But we have to accept what we've done. We've decided to become a jazz violinist. It's pretty weird, but we have to carve out our own career. We have to create our own things. We have to make our own things happen. If we want to be playing a gig, chances are we might have to make that gig happen ourselves. We might have to get in contact with that booker. We might have to put a band together. We might have to get the recordings done. We might have to, book the tour. We might have to blah, 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 do all that stuff. And that's just how it generally is. It's not a bad thing. We can see this as a good thing. It's going to be it's a great skill to learn, to be industrious and to, look for opportunity and make it happen ourselves. It's a great thing to do. It's a little bit tiring. It might not be what you thought you were signing up for when you were thinking, hey, I want to play like Stefan Grappelli or whatever. It might not be what you thought you were signing up for, but it is what it is. And you can harness it and make it a good thing. If you are not naturally that way inclined, it doesn't come naturally to you to, get all this stuff done, get really good at organizing and things like that. It is something you can practice. I feel like often musicians will say, "Oh, I can't do this stuff because I don't know. It's just, I'm just not very good at it." And it's like, look, if you can learn to play jazz violin, which is you've basically spent hours and hours and hours, like basically playing the violin, trying to be as in tune as possible, trying to make the nicest sound possible, and then you're also playing jazz on it. You playing over these complex chord changes and making music in real time. If you can spend the time doing that, you can spend the time getting some gigs. It's a lot easier to get good at writing some emails and, getting in contact with venues and, organizing people than it is to spend hours and hours and years of your life basically playing jazz. So if you can play jazz, you can do this. You just need to spend a bit of time. You just need to, put some effort in and do it. Now, listen, I'm not saying that I'm very good at it. I'm not saying that it's my strong point either. I'm not actually that great at getting loads of gigs. I'm not out there emailing every couple of, days. I'm not like that. I'm industrious in other ways, but maybe not in that way. I don't know. I'm not coming from a perspective of like, I'm really good at it, so you should get good at it. I don't think I'm that good at it. And I'm just saying that it's something that you're going to have to do. I think that I'm better at it than some people, and I think it is something that I'm okay at. And it's because I sort of have to. If I want to play and I want to be making money from music and sort of living in this world of jazz, right, and making that my life, then I basically have to make it happen myself because, I'm a violinist. No one really gets it. It's a weird thing. Jazz violin is weird. Anyway, guys, hopefully that was helpful for you. Like I've said before, please like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. Blah, 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 blah. Bye, bye, bye. Thanks.